We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. First thing we're going to have is the invocation by Reverend Alexis Talbot, and then we'll have the pledge led by Vice Mayor Nunn. Please rise.
Oh, Holy Spirit, we thank you for this gathering, and I pray a blessing over everyone in this space, that those who are listening would listen deeply, those who are speaking would speak with respect, and that a discernment of what is best for all would be determined. I pray a blessing on this council. I pray that we would continue in the good work that makes our city here in Sebastian the very best it can be. We thank you, Lord, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Jones.
Here.
Vice Mayor Nunn.
Here.
Councilmember Dixon. Here. Councilmember Dye.
Here.
And Councilmember McPartlin.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, next thing on our agenda is agenda modifications. Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have two tonight. The first item is the employee contract, and we're looking to add that to unfinished business as item 11A. And the second one is we've got an issue on the front, the south side of City Hall, that we're also bringing an item for your consideration to waive the procurement process, and we would like to place that on item 12D under new business.
All right, without objection from the council?
No, yeah, sounds good.
All right, so add it. Next thing on our agenda is public input. Anyone wishing to speak on anything that's not current on the current agenda, please come forward and state your name, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Karen Hiltz, resident of Sebastian. I'm trying to understand why the city is involved with trash collection from a private contractor. Service from a private business should not be under the authority or purview of any government. What's next? As many have pointed out, are you going to dictate to the residents which pool or lawn service we must use? Our founding fathers laid out very clearly the role of government in our constitutional republic. Yes, a republic, not a democracy. There is a difference. To better understand your role in our republic, I recommend two readings: The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith and the Federalist Papers written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. Limited government is the key. I also recommend The 5,000-Year Leap as well. Because they fled tyranny, they knew creating a democracy was not a solution. As students of history, they knew all democracies ended in tyranny. Our republic is based on laws of nature and nature's God, not a government. All our founding fathers knew the importance of a moral and just society. They understood our Creator as the foundation of our republic and set forth certain unalienable rights, which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as our Declaration of Independence clearly states. Many of their writings, Federalist Papers, and communications refer to life, liberty, and property. If property cannot be protected, then the people will not have life and liberty. It appears those who voted to dictate this trash removal service have forgotten their role. It is the right of we the people to determine what is best for us. The government isn't established to take away our rights, but to ensure our rights are protected. Listening to those who spoke during public comment are very clearly they didn't want universal service. And social media reflects the majority oppose or disagree with this mandate for a variety of reasons. Yes, you do have taxing authority for the municipality. However, you don't have authority to dictate what private service any of us choose to subscribe to. We already have convenience centers that come out of our county taxes. Your vote in May took away our right to choose, which is fundamental to our society. You are merely creating a larger welfare state, as I understand funds will be provided for those who are not able to afford the increased cost. The practice of taking from the haves and have-nots the practice of taking from the haves and giving to the have-nots doesn't end well. It's called socialism. Your authority is not to dictate or help residents by further expanding the welfare state. Your first priority is to protect our God-given rights as stated under the Constitution from tyranny. I ask you to reconsider and restore our right to choose. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. Next, anyone else? Do we? Oh.
My name is Terry Hughes, and I live on Herndon Street here in Sebastian. I'd like to talk to you about the sidewalk on Schumann Drive between Engler Drive and Pelican Island Place. I take Schumann Drive many times a week, and the sidewalk is used quite a bit. There's a lot of traffic on that sidewalk, especially when the kids are going to school and coming back from school. Kids are riding their bikes, and mothers are going with the kids to go to the school and coming back. People from the community uses that sidewalk quite a bit. The sidewalk is made mostly of asphalt, and it's in really bad shape. I have pictures here to give you, and you can keep them.
Yes, sir.
I think it's time to replace the sidewalk with concrete. Also, when it rains a lot, the sidewalk floods in many places. So when the kids are coming back, or going to school and coming back from school, they have to go through the water or around it. So they probably go through it. The sidewalk on Barber Street is 6 feet wide. I stopped and measured it. And I think the sidewalk at Schumann Drive should be the same. I have a letter here from my pastor. I go to Sebastian Christian Church that is on Schumann Drive. And you can have that also. Another sidewalk is on, this sidewalk is on Fleming west of 512. Needs a lot of attention also. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much, sir. If you could pass that information to the clerk, and we'll make sure that we direct someone to take a look at that for
All right,
sure.
thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Annette Mackey, my husband Steve. We live on Ellison Street, and we're here to address code enforcement. We live next to a hoarder, and it's starting to affect our property because she is not keeping her property maintained. My husband was polite enough to cut it one day, and she was not happy about that and politely asked him to no longer cut it. So now it's getting snaky, it's growing up.
Rats.
Yeah, we've seen rats in the daytime on the fence, on her
What did you
roof.
say the location was again?
679.
Ellison.
This is one
Ellison.
that I believe the city manager is aware of, and code enforcement as well.
Yes, and I want...
They're working through the process.
Yes, they were
It's-
very polite. You guys all emailed back, and I just want to say thank you for that. And we are willing to work with the process, because that's what we were told, that unfortunately, it's a process that takes time. We moved here to that house, May of 21, and code enforcement's been out multiple times, almost 2 years. So I'd like to know, where can we find a copy of that process? Does the city of Sebastian have a manual that has this stuff? I mean, what is the process? Because 2 years is a long process.
All right, that's no problem. We can actually, Mr. Benton will be able to help you out with that. Give him your contact information, and he'll have either him or one of his staff members will take care of that for you.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. There he is. Hang on, ma'am. You can get it now from Mr. Benton.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tony Ray, and I am here to put you all on notice that you are breaking your oath of office, and I am requesting your bond. This evening, I have served each and every one of you with a letter intent to file a claim against your City of Sebastian property and casualty insurance policy that is held by FMIT, that are required by state for every person who is elected and appointed to government or public office. According to your policy, it is the duty of the policyholder, in the event a person files a letter against you for your wrongful act, you are held personally responsible. This notice is to inform you of your violations of my unconstitutional protected rights and any other rights, privileges, or immunities that I may have in violations of due process of the law, and is required by U.S. Code statute, the Constitution of the United States of America, and the Florida Constitution. Be it known that you are attempting to make law in the absence of due process of law by issuing ordinances, orders, mandates, and other statements that create a color of law, but not our actual law. You do not have the authority to do so. Therefore, you are participating in a conspiracy that is a violation of your oath of office. As an oath sworn public servant, you are governed by the contracts established by the federal and Florida state constitution, federal codes, and statute, all that apply to you. Be on notice that you are held, again, personally liable for your actions under permit U.S. codes and criminal civilities. You might not realize this, but each and every one of you is personally liable for a predetermined amount stated in your policy for damages per the claim. I am handing each and every one of you one of these. And I ask that you sign this document that says you're getting it. You're on camera.
I can be on camera.
You can be on, that's fine.
Please, can you give it to our attorney? Can you give it to our attorney?
No, I'm a person, I'm a U.S. American. I can hand it to each other.
I believe I'm American.
No, you're a U.S. citizen.
All right, ma'am, your time is up now. You may do whatever you need to do, but we're not signing, so.
That's fine.
And you're going to be, your time is up. Have a nice evening, sorry.
My time is not up.
I said your time is up. Yes, thank you.
You don't have a right to touch me. U.S. Supreme Court, 1964, New York Times versus Sullivan. This
All right,
nation is founded on
she's
profound
done. She's
national
out.
comment to the principle debate shall be uninhibited, robust, and wide open. It may well include vehement, caustic,
She's
and
out.
sometimes unpleasant, shapely attacks on the government or public officials. This is constitutional law. I do not have to be nice to you, neither do any one of these people. Don't touch me. This is supreme law. The mic's right there. You just put it away. My time is done. You all have been warned. You have 72 hours.
Thank you. All right.
It's unconstitutional what they're doing.
All right. Let's get back to it, sir. Your name, please.
My name is Peter Heilman. I live in Sebastian. I moved here 4 years ago and was pleasantly surprised moving down here to Florida from up north. I always thought Florida was too hot and too flat and full of old people. And I found out the heat's not a problem with an air conditioner and a pool. The flatness is great on gas mileage, and I'm one of the youngest old people I know. I was very glad to move in a very quiet neighborhood. Very pleasantly surprised all my neighbors are friendly and people are very nice down here. I was not pleasantly surprised to find out that my trash removal would be increased by 400%. It's more than doubled what I usually pay, and I get half the service from it. That's a 400% increase. And it's something that I have to pay whether I want to use the service or not. And I find that unconscionable. So now I'm not happy. And I call you all folks to reconsider that decision, and for the people behind me to reconsider their support of any of that decision. And I want to remind you folks that there was a recall a number of years ago, and we as a citizenry who hire you to do your job can also fire if we need to. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Next person, please.
Mark Diedrich.
Sir, can you go over to the other mic there? Yes, sir.
Mark Diedrich, Sebastian. Property owners since 1984 here, a resident since 2008. As a full-time resident and a non-subscriber from the day I've gotten here to the trash pickup, and for the folks that own homes here and are only here part-time, I think it is very unfair that we, who don't subscribe to the service or here are part-time, subsidize everyone else that is getting their trash picked up. Now, what happens to me is I'm going to pay $5 for every time they pick my trash up. I got a little thing every week. I go and dump it at the dump. Anyway, the discussion of the matter that started, it should have started way before you started it, but it didn't. It was very short and without hardly any notice to the people of what was going to happen. Now, when you're spending approximately $2.4 million a year on this trash, there should have been some sort of a forum brought to the people so that they could have voted on this. I don't think you, and I emailed the council and asked for the writing of how you have the authority to go forward with such a thing with that amount of money involved to the people and the citizens of, tax-paying citizens of Sebastian. So I would be more than happy to go along with the rule of majority, but I thought it should have been brought to the people. Now, when you recalled the council people here, you certainly brought a vote ahead of it, and you made plenty of notification, and it was done. Why wasn't it done that there was a vote brought before, and the people got to decide what was going to happen? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the audience?
Mr. Mayor, council members. William McQuarrie. I live here in Sebastian for about 10 years. I called up here one day to find out what was going on with this trash pickup. I don't subscribe to it, and I've lived in several places across the United States where waste management has their business. They will double this price in 2 years. You can count on it. My question to you is this: who was the person who actually thought up the idea to give a public or private company the right to take our money out of our checking account and give it to them without my permission? One of y'all had to come up with this. I don't know which one it was. Another thing I'd like to know is, basically, is when I called Waste Management to find out about this, I was told if I didn't have a contract with the city, with Waste Management this time, I would not be affected one way or another. So that was a bold faced lie there, which I'm used to by them because I've had their service about 5 times. I would never take it voluntarily. I was also told up here that you put this out for bids. Is that correct?
We did. Yes, sir.
How many people bid on it?
There was one bid that was open. Two
You know
other
why
companies.
it was on one bid? Because
Well,
it's
no,
the only company that was big enough to make that bid and get every person in this country. The rest of them are too small. We know that, don't we?
Yeah.
They couldn't do it. So what happened? Waste Management steps up. You gave the whole company, the whole city, for what? Without a vote. They've got everybody in Sebastian without having to raise a finger because they knew their competition could not take this on. I would like to see this go back on the ballot to be voted on. No. It can be done.
Can you end that?
If there's anything else that can be done to help the people, I'm retired. I'm 100% disabled. And I don't want to spend $20 and give it to Waste Management because I know where it goes. And it doesn't go to the right places. So that's my speech for tonight, I guess. But if you will, consider what I've got to say, because this is a fair thing for the people, not just for me.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, did you get the gentleman's name?
No, what's your name again, sir? I think Jeanette's got it. Yeah, yeah. We had an outburst with clapping, and for those who have never been here before, we don't allow that in here. So if you would please refrain from that so that we can continue on. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Your name?
Good evening, Karen Jordan, Sebastian. Waste Management, based on what I understand, they came to the city in the beginning of the year. And y'all did some things to allow us as a community to learn. But as you can see, apparently you didn't give us enough time. What I'd like to consider is what else do you do? What else have you got in the future that we, the people, need to know about? Because, for example, I've asked about the Krabby Bills. There's a lot of things happening. Y'all keep up with it. Allow us to be part of that discussion. But I don't think we have been. I told you the last time I was here, that should have been up for a vote, because I certainly would not have made people who don't use the service use it. I would be willing to pay double so they didn't have to, just as the gentleman said. God bless you. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the audience? If not, okay, we have one more. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Louise Cottenberg. I've lived in the city of Sebastian for about 28 years now. And I'm here tonight just to let you hear something that you don't hear very often. You're doing a good job. This trashy decision. It's like, man, I'm 78 years old next month. I've never lived anywhere where trash removal or handling was free. Anywhere. It's not free in Vero. Vero has 3 different services, and if you try to find out who's hauling trash from any particular neighborhood, there isn't even anybody who knows for sure. You kind of have to follow a truck to figure it out. There are lots of different ways to handle trash removal, and certainly there are options. One of the options that some folks would seem to be in favor of is that we don't have a private entity handle it. And if you think this is expensive, many, many cities, in fact, my old hometown, is going broke from handling the employee injuries, the maintenance, the retirement funds, for handling everything all by themselves. So I think you've done a good job. I'm sorry that some people are not happy about it. And as I told a friend of mine, I've been paying for the service of a transfer station for 28 years, and I've never even used it once, and I've never even complained about it before. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the audience?
Good evening. John Vacchiano, Sebastian resident.
Appreciate that.
Last two meetings I have watched, or this one I was present, the last one I watched, it seems that this council is not very receptive of criticism, critical criticism here. You're to be accountable, right? So when people come from here, we the people come and speak to you, you shouldn't be attacking people, shutting down their voices, and telling them they have no voice to speak. It's called Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, which our government guarantees us that we are a constitutional republic. And that flows from the federal government to the state government to our local government. So it just doesn't look good when I've looked at transcripts, I've watched the films. A young lady came up tonight, and as soon as she brings up points that you are certainly need to be accountable to, you guys seem to get all upset and speak in a negative way, and that just doesn't look good. So hopefully we can do better in the future. Again, the big issue with the trash is not that there's a payment for it. The big issue is, one, do you have the authority to choose that service for us? And two is, shouldn't we have a choice to say whether or not we want the service? And I'm not sure what numbers that you've received, but from all of my comings and goings throughout the city here, way over majority are very upset with this. Talked to Waste Management. The poor young lady on the phone was bombarded with calls when everybody started getting their $60 bill, which went up at least $17. And so again, it goes back to a free choice, not, you know, if you have this kind of authority, you need to tell the people you have this kind of authority, right? If you don't have this kind of authority, then you shouldn't be taking this kind of authority. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Anyone else from the audience? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
Nobody has raised their hand.
All right, public input is closed. Move on to the consent agenda, council.
I'd like to remove item G.
Item G.
Also like to remove item E.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of items 8A, B, C, D, F, H, I, J, K, L.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
And Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, we start off with item E. Mr. Nunn.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I just think when we're approving a subdivision final plat, I just felt like it shouldn't have been on the consent agenda, maybe a discussion agenda so people hear what we're doing, what's going on. It's related to the Spirit of Sebastian project, the PUD. So I just felt like it needed a little more sunshine.
All right, Mr. Nunn, you got any questions on that? Anyone, any comments on it?
I would just like to personally just hear what this is, what's before us, please.
I've heard a lot of outside about the project. I want to just see how things are going and if there are any problems that they are having would be what I would like to hear.
Okay.
If the applicant's here and willing.
The applicant
Yes,
is here, I do
if
believe.
someone's here. Yes, sir, come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. How are you? I'm Robert Votas, citizen here at Sebastian, Florida. And I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns over the plat. This is an application, obviously, for a final plat for the first phase, or Pod 2, of the community. The construction has been completed to over 90%. We've posted a bond for any uncompleted items that were left that still are dragging on a little bit just because of FPL and their timeframes. But we would like to go ahead and get the plat filed so that we can begin conveying lots. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
And do you guys need a gas bond because you're running gas over there?
No, sir. That is a public utility that is provided. So that would be like trying to bond off of FPL and a company that we don't have any control over. So that bond was determined that it was not needed.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, are neighborhoods and everything, surrounding area, everything going good there? And
That has, we spend a vast amount of time with our neighbors trying to make sure that during this construction time that we've been, friendly, that we're trying to build a bridge and not a barrier between them. And the people on Del Monte coming in, we still have another lift of asphalt that has to go on there that we've bonded out for. But until we have another section to bond, we didn't want that to get ruined by anything during this time. So it'll be a nice fresh coat when we get the gates in and everything else.
awesome. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of item 8E.
Yes, I second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Mr. Dodd?
Yeah, I just want, if we're doing this for public knowledge, I just like everybody out there to understand this is, this community that they're putting in Pod 1 is extremely consistent with the county's visioning system. They're building a agri neighborhood.
Yes, sir, it is an agri
Which is one of the 3 types of neighborhoods that the county visioning statement, visioning document indicated that they wanted built. And incidentally, the first one's being built in Sebastian. And Spirit of Sebastian is going to be an extremely nice addition to this city. The developer's doing a great job on putting together that. They're doing a great job with their neighbors, trying to help their neighbors make sure that they don't get disrupted during this process. So I think it's a great project, and the citizens should be kind of happy that it's in Sebastian.
Well, thank you, Mr. Dodd. I appreciate that. And if for anybody who doesn't understand what an agri-hood is we are trying to make this a self-sustaining community to where food and sources are grown actually on the property for the residents and for, the people in the community as well. We'll have that established here in the next, I would think, year. It'll be up and growing. And until we have enough homeowners to do that, we'll be hopefully having some open houses and some farmer markets out there and a chance for the public to come see the kinds of things that we're trying to do, for the community and be responsible and to help this community grow with a little bit of grace instead of just wanting uncontrollable growth. So we're trying to do things properly, and I thank you for all of your support that you have given us.
Yeah, I think it's a community we can be proud of to have in Sebastian. Fruit trees everywhere.
Yes,
and,
sir.
It's a great concept. I like the agri-hood concept.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hang on just a second. Maybe you want to step aside. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Is there anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
All right, public input's closed. We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion from council? No. Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item G, Mr. Dodd.
Okay, there seems to be a discrepancy. Item 10 on page 65 of your handout.
65?
Yeah, and item number 12 on page 66 are contradictory. One says there's going to be an allowance of $350 for a car. Item 10 says there's going to be a vehicle given. So it can't really be both of those. It needs to be one. My understanding was that the allowance is what the council was wanting to do in the contracts. So
Right, yeah.
I think item 10 needs to be done away with.
Mr. Mai?
Well, item 10 is intended for long trips, and that's why it was put in there, more than 75 miles, but and that's the reason that it's in there.
Okay.
Yeah, the car allowance is for the regular, and then
Yeah.
if there's extended, more than 75 miles, then we would be able to reimburse.
Okay, I know, I tend, when I go on something like if I have to go to something for Florida League of Cities in Clearwater, I'll drive my own car, the city reimburses me mileage on that. Would it not be appropriate to provide that option to the city attorney, that if they're gonna drive their car on a sanctioned trip outside of the 75-mile radius, that the city pays for mileage on that as opposed to providing an automobile?
And
that is,
that's something out of the ordinary.
and that is on item 12 as well
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So, we literally could just strike item 10.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, because it
and
says in
item
item
12
12
covers
that shall be entitled to mileage reimbursement in accordance with city policy for use of a personal vehicle when traveling more than 75 miles from City Hall.
Yeah, it gives her the option of either getting the mileage or taking a city vehicle.
Okay.
But the intent is past 75 miles, that's, 350 is for less than 75 miles.
Right.
Okay. All right, I'm fine, I'm fine with it if everybody else is okay with it. I just didn't, I saw kind of a discrepancy between the two.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I'll move approval of item 8G.
Second?
Just one question.
Any discussion, Mr. McPartland?
Is just, I know the the future possible city attorney was not able to attend, but I thought she might be on Zoom.
Oh,
And to see if, she had any comment about what we had mentioned.
yeah.
I do have one person with their hand raised.
All right, go ahead, bring him in. I think that's Jennifer.
showing on the screen.
It'll be coming.
Hi there. Yes, it is me. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi there. Good evening. Sorry I couldn't be with you. So I'm fine with you leaving it in. My only concern with taking it out is that I do have a coupe vehicle, so I wouldn't be able to use that to basically have anybody, taken around with me if we needed to take a trip or anything for city purposes.
So we're okay then.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And she's happy with the contract otherwise?
Yes. It took a long time to get here, Bob.
All right, well, I just want to make sure she's there. All of a sudden I say
Oh, yeah.
yes and she says no, It wouldn't be the
I'm
first
here.
time it happened.
Yeah,
I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm just getting over something.
yeah. So, okay, so we had, no other discussions? Madam Clerk?
Public comment?
Oh, yeah, true, sorry. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this contract? Is there anyone with their hands raised on Zoom other than her?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, public input's closed. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dixon?
No.
Motion carries.
All right. We've got, any committee reports?
Well, I got a couple. I just don't know where I should start first. At the last county commission meeting, they were talking about raising the tourist development tax from the 4th to the 5th cent, but the 5th cent's not really a 5th cent, it's like a 6th cent. And Kristen Daniels down there, she was able to explain it. So I guess they're gonna have a further discussion at some time in July, and they're looking to raise that extra penny. And that, they believe if they went the extra penny, it would raise about $1 million, and that would go specifically for beach restoration. And again, the tourist development tax is for the bed on the head tax. So it's it's primarily not an Indian River County tax. It would be for somebody who's renting a hotel. So if I rented a room at Captain Hiram's, I would be paying that extra $1 on 100 for the room or Airbnb or another hotel. So it is very interesting because then it raises the million. I don't know how many millions we spend already on beach restoration. So that million would primarily not be coming from Indian River County residents. And then we had the Indian River County Veterans Council meeting. That went very well. And I had to miss this morning's Metropolitan Planning Organization. So seeing we're all here, I had gotten a package from Patty Johnson. There's a lot of interesting stuff that was on there, so I figure, Mr. Dodd, if there's anything you want to tell me that I missed.
Well, the Metropolitan Planning Council is moving forward with their 5 and 10-year plans. This morning at the meeting, when we placed priorities on those, we moved the 45th Street repaving and sidewalk construction up to the highest priority. Actually moved it up above Oslo Road and some others. That project in Gifford has been on the drawing board for, I think, 18 years, and it just has never made the priority list. And one of the discussions we had this morning, it was really interesting to hear the gentleman talk about the sidewalk on Schumann. One of the big discussions we had this morning was about the fact that Vero Beach has a major issue with safety on kids going to school. They don't have very many children who ride bikes or walk to school because they have no way to get them there. I mean, basically, one of the Vero Beach council members said this morning that if you try to walk to Vero Beach Elementary School, you might not get there alive. That it's that bad and that dangerous. And I've been on that road, and I told him I don't even like to drive on it, let alone walk on it. But and we don't necessarily have that problem in Sebastian because of the sidewalks. I think it's very important that we address that Schumann sidewalk for that reason as much as anything else, that it's an avenue for the kids in that neighborhood to get to that school. And so there was a lot of discussion around that. And also discussion about the new bridge over the inlet. The bicycle people were after us for the last 4 months about why aren't we have bigger bike lanes, and now the people who live there are after us about why we even putting bike lanes in. So it's kind of a quandary you get into when you do these things from the Republic government that is elected democratically. Okay, and so it's just those are the quandaries you get into when you do that. So that's pretty much what went on in that meeting.
It's interesting about the sidewalk thing, because it was when I first got up here is when they did the Barber Street expansion, and the Metropolitan Planning Organization helped with the funding. That's why I think they have 6-foot sidewalks over there. Yes. So I think maybe on Schumann, we could work within the Metropolitan Planning Organization and maybe get those sidewalks, because again, it has to do with school safety. If you travel Schumann before and after school, as the gentleman had referenced, there are a lot of kids who use a bike, because that is an impoverished area of Sebastian, and so they don't necessarily have a parent who can drive them to school, that they are walking and they are riding their bicycles.
Yeah. One of the cautions I would have on that, and it's not disparity on the MPO, but the MPO things take a lot of time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It takes roughly 8 years to go from deciding you want to do something to the construction phase. So, for example, they're not even going to build the second part of 510 for another 6 years, and it's been talked about for I don't know how long. So if it's possible for the city to financially do that sidewalk themselves, as opposed to trying to bring it into an MPO project where they bring in FDOT and they do all that kind of stuff, it might be worthwhile to do that. But it's certainly, they're going to do a bicycle study. They're going to do a study that's going to include safety on kids getting to school. It would be important for us to get it into that study. I'm just not sure we want to depend on the MPO providing us any financial assistance in the short term on that. So
I'm just saying as an option,
yes,
because it got bumped up, that TIP plan before. It wasn't even on there, and it was made a #1 priority. Yeah. And we did have help at the time from one of the county commissioners who represents our area. Okay. So I just wanted to point that out as an option.
Yeah, good.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item 9A, Parks and Recreation. Hang on, before we start, I do have 2 of the members here. Okay. And if you would like to come forward and say something, you can. If not, before we start discussing it, you don't have to. No one's coming, so let's go for Mr.
I'd like
Duff.
to make, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to move that we reappoint Joanne Webster to her current position, and that we elevate Vicki Dunheller from an alternate position to a current permanent position.
I second that.
Oh, there you go.
Second. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on that? All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
All right, public input's closed. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dodd?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, before we move off this
Oh,
item.
sorry, yeah, we got one more to fill, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we waive the advertising requirement for the now empty alternate position and that we appoint Robert Allen to that position.
I was going to ask Mr. Mayor if Mr. Allen or Mr. Day are here today that.
No, I got
Neither
a question mark. Oh, there's one here. Yeah, come forward, sir. Yes.
Give them an opportunity to speak for themselves.
I didn't get the notification. I usually put a check down by who's here, but I didn't get your name.
Sorry, I probably had some paperwork I was supposed to check when I got here. I missed it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, my name is Robert Allen. I've been here for about 2.5 years, just moved back to start my family, quite a bit like a sea turtle. But I'm actually born and raised from Indian River County, my wife as well. So we have been here for the first 25 years of our lives. We went off, roamed around the country, got to see what's good. And now we're here, and we have a beautiful daughter. She's 1.5 years old, and I'm looking forward to being part of the community in a bigger way and making this already beautiful community even better.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak?
I second Mr. Allen.
Yeah, I got that. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
All right, public input's closed. Any further discussion from council? If not, Madam Clerk?
Pretty even, so.
I think we probably should have did both at the same time, but I already called a vote on the first one, and this is second. Okay, great.
Okay. Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
And Councilmember McPartlin?
Good luck, Mr. Allen. Thank you for serving.
Yes, thank you. All right, what do we have next here?
Planning and zoning.
All right, the P and Z, fill one regular member position.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recommend or nominate Mr. Christopher Roberts. He's currently serving on our construction board, so he'd have to relinquish that one, but he's been a serving committee member, and I think if he wants to, yeah.
All right, so we have Mr. Christopher Roberts as a nominee. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, Sherry Matthews has been, is the oldest serving alternate, I think by 1.5 months on that committee. So I'd like to nominate Sherry Matthews.
No, but she's not. This is an additional position.
Okay, but she's an alternate, and this is a additional regular member position.
Is it?
Yes.
I didn't think about her because she's
fill
not
one
on.
expired regular member
There you go.
position.
Yeah.
So I'd like to nominate Sherry Matthews to move from alternate to regular member.
Did she, my issue is, I don't know if she's expressed interest because she's not on the list.
Yeah, she's not on the list.
Well, I would beg to differ. She's in the bullpen.
Well, no,
Is the way I consider it.
Ms. Matthews, can you please come forward, please, and
I
clear
just kinda
this
like
up
to
for us
move
once and
alternates
for
up
all?
rather
Oh, no, definitely. I didn't want to speak for her, so.
Let them know.
This is kind of opposite effect here. You guys go ahead. No. Thank you, sir. When I first was asked, I did say that I'm learning, and the alternate position actually does give you that position to learn. But I think in any position that you are learning, so I'm honored that you would nominate me to vote up, so yes, I will take that.
Okay.
Great.
All right. So we have a vote for, nomination for Sherry Matthews.
Can I second in a separate?
Well, no, we're going to go ahead and just do it in, yes, we have a motion and a second, right? Who was the motion? You?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
Well, we got two people.
We got two people.
So who are we voting on? Just say the two people.
No, we got two people, so Madam Clerk, is
Take a
there
vote.
any other nominations?
No.
No other nominations. Madam Clerk?
Okay, so you're going to tell me which one?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Sherry Matthews.
Councilmember Dixon?
Sherry Matthews.
Councilmember Dodd?
Sherry Matthews.
And Councilmember McPartlin?
Sherry Matthews.
And Mayor Jones?
Sherry Matthews.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, before you move off, I have one more thing.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move that we waive the advertising requirement for the currently empty alternate position and that we appoint Christopher Roberts to that position.
Second.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we need anything else? Any discussion, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Roberts is appointed.
Very good.
All right, so We have no public hearing. Now, under unfinished business, we added this at the beginning of the meeting, the union contract, item 11A. Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is Resolution R-23-11, approving the collective bargaining agreement to be effective October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2025, between the City of Sebastian and the International Union of Police Associations, Local 6054 and Local 6056.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Hearing none, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
Public input's closed. Any discussion from council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Mayor, who was the second? Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda, item 12A, resolution number R-23-10. Mr. Mai.
You like me to read it? I
Well,
think we typically
hang on.
don't
Let me
read
see.
resolutions, but I can.
Yeah, I always like to do that,
All right.
so, yes.
A resolution of the City of Sebastian in River County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute a public transportation grant agreement, PTGA, with the Florida Department of Transportation for funding the rehabilitation cost of FM 451510-1-94-01, runway 0523 asphalt rehabilitation with lighting improvement at the Sebastian Municipal Airport, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Sabo, would you like to come forward? In case the council has questions for you, come on. Don't be afraid. We're not going to bite.
Hard.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to take any questions you might have. This is just a resolution accepting the FDOT Florida portion of the grant for this project, of which they will be 5%. The city will be 5%. As a matter of fact, the bid tabulations are in process right now for what we will submit to the FAA for the large money, the 90% portion of this grant. But at this point, this is strictly for the lesser part, and once we notify and complete negotiations to start talking with the selected contractor, we'll be ready to move forward and bring that to you as well.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions from council?
No, I do have a comment. Just for those that are watching or listening or not aware, this total project is $3,170,000. Runways are not cheap to maintain, but the FAA is covering $2,853,000 of that. The state is covering $158,000, and the last $158,000 is actually coming from discretionary. Well, I can say that today. Discretionary sales tax funds. So it's not coming out of our general fund. It's coming from sales tax that's spent within our city and county. So that's really good, because obviously runways are not cheap to maintain. So absolutely, good job on giving the grants.
All right, thank you.
And
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, it's unbelievable how premium value the airport space is at, and we are going to be getting fair market value rent for that. Have we recently done an appraisal on that space? Because I remember several years ago there was a commotion about we were not getting fair market value because we didn't have a latest appraisal. You know, are we up to date on everything?
We should have been up to date based on the last master plan that was submitted. It'll probably be another 2 to 3 years before we have to go through a new master plan. Some of the individual properties on the airport, depending on the leases and the agreements that we have with those tenants, those will be individually appraised to make sure that those leases are fair market value and satisfy the requirements of the FAA.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sabo. I mean, it's just amazing how much is going on at the airport, and I don't know, I make a motion to approve item, what are we on?
All right.
Resolution R-23-13.
23-10.
10? You got 10? Maybe I was on the wrong one.
Yeah.
Hey, that wouldn't be the first time I was wrong for sure. So we'll go R-20, We're still on 10? I thought we
R
voted on 10.
23-10, no. we're still-
R23-10. Put your glasses on.
That's the runway rehabilitation, we're talking about the building.
No, we're talking about the runway.
What were you talking about?
The runway.
The runway.
And you asked about the buildings. You asked about the buildings.
So yes, I second your motion for approving R23-10.
Oh, all right, you straight now, Bob?
No, I think, either I'm hallucinating, still under the influence of anesthesia and painkillers from surgery, I don't know. I'll have to watch it when I get home.
Yeah, so do we have anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, I'd just like to say I had Mr. Sabo take me around the airport last week. I looked at every single building, everything that we have out there to really learn what's happening at our airport and the operations that we have and what's happening with our buildings, who's in there, who's renting the spaces, who's doing what. So I want to thank you so much for taking me out there since we're on the airport thing here. So we have a motion?
We have a motion and a second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Oh, we're on 12B. Mr. Mai.
A resolution of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute a public transportation grant agreement, PIGA, with the Florida Department of Transportation for funding of grant number FM 449620-1-94-01, Hangar D office build-out at the Sebastian Municipal Airport, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Sabo, would you like to come forward? I know we had some concerns about closing on the building and everything else.
Yes, at this point, the Hangar D, after a very lengthy process and many delays, we feel is basically in our hands at this point. We have received notification from the contractor that they're done. They're giving it to us to proceed forward with. We still have some things to tick off in final negotiations with the contractor, but the building is ours. The way it was originally established with the first grant was to manufacture the building as a shell. It was not set forth to go all the way through with final completion. So what we've received is basically a certificate of significant completion. Our goal now, by using these funds also from FDOT, is to achieve a certificate of occupancy. And that is determined by whichever tenants we select and are willing to go into the building, either for ourselves or to assist the tenant in building out those spaces to make them habitable with HVAC, additional lighting, electrical needs, and things along that line. So it is just a shell. This will see it through to completion and get us a tenant in there as soon as possible.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I made it and I'll make it again. I'll move approval of resolution number R-23-13.
I'll second that.
Good job.
I would like to mention that after talking to Mr. Sabo in length about what's going on at the airport, people wonder, why we're building buildings and all of this stuff. Unfortunately, the FDOT is paying for most of this project as well. He gets phone calls every day of people wanting to rent space at our airport, wanting space, constantly wanting to rent space. So everything we've built out there, we've filled up with tenants that are paying fair market value, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
Good job.
All right. Any more questions from the council? Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Seeing none, do we have anyone with their hands raised on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, public input is closed. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
And Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
All right, move on to item 12C.
I nominate Mrs. Dixon.
Second.
Third.
It's initiation, that's all.
Lord.
It's fun.
We've all gone through
It'll
it.
be fine. You'll
It's
be
actually,
fine.
it's for doing this, and it's actually a great experience because you get to learn about
Oh, I know.
what's being voted on. You get to hear about all the bills in the state and the cities and the Florida League of Cities, opinion and what they think about each bill and why. So, it's a very, very informative, session. So you'll enjoy it.
Well,
And right now, there are 5 people running for the president's position for the
Well, thank
Florida League. So you might get to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will be
exactly. You'll be in
attending
there
part of
voting,
it,
so.
But I took a teaching position this week, so
Mhm.
I can't miss the first day of school.
Well, what day is this one?
This will be Saturday
this is
morning.
Saturday
Oh, I'll
morning.
be there.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I
I'll be
want to
there
hear
for
all
that.
this.
Well, we got you. Saturday morning, you'll be good.
I'll be there, good.
Be a
All
good
right.
primer getting up early for school, right?
I'll already be at it, yeah.
All right,
Do we
next
need it?
item is, item D, 12D.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. One of the things we need to discuss underneath that item is whether or not we want to move the council meeting
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, we have to
on
move
August
that.
9th to August 8th.
I make the motion to move our council meeting to August, or move it from August 8th to, what date did we want to go to?
August 9th to August 8th.
Thank you.
Yeah, to Tuesday.
August 9th to August 8th,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
There we go.
Let me check this calendar real quick.
If we do that, I won't be able to attend.
The
Can what?
council meeting?
Correct.
Well, you can pop on Zoom.
I'll be on an airplane.
Okay, well, we'll handle it. We'll be okay.
Just let you know.
No, okay, we'll
I
be
scheduled
okay.
my vacation around council meetings, but they always seem to move.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on. All right,
Yeah.
do we need to make a motion on that?
No.
Okay.
I made a motion to move the council meeting to August 8th.
All right, second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Vice Mayor Nunn,
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember McPartland,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item 12D, Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this item, we have a little bit of an issue on our balconies on the south side of City Hall, in regards that we've had one, the lower section has fallen down, and we have identified at least one other, possibly the other 3 as being hazards. So we're requesting, per the city's ordinance, our procurement ordinance, to waive the bidding process so that we can work with the contractor to get this project started quickly and get it completed so that we can remove the hazard from anyone in this area.
Just for the community's understanding, the City's Hall has balconies on the front. One of those balconies is already collapsed, or partially collapsed, and another one's about ready to. And it's a pretty drastic safety hazard potentially. So, I think it's important that we get moved forward on this. If we go through the full bidding process, we're looking at 3 to 5 months before we can actually do work on it, but we can get it done very quickly this way. Contractor is already working in City Hall on another project, so it's a relatively easy thing to do, and I move approval.
I second that with
All right,
discussion.
so we have a motion and a second. Yeah, also, we have offices that are right along there where those balconies are, and their doors are right there. Just imagine what it would feel like if you're in there and something happened. So, not to mention someone walking under that, or someone mowing one of our employees or something. So, I'm not in favor. So, do we have anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, so public input's closed. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to, I remember, and again, I do remember a little bit, sometimes I do slip, but I remember it's probably over a decade ago, there was a problem with the roof leak, and also, I believe in here, and also at the police department. And I was wondering, because this was structural damage that occurred, is there any way possible, I had spoken to Brian about possible litigation, because this could be, leaking in when they had at not the main commission building, but the one across where the clerk is, the front of the building had collapsed. There was like a picnic area out there, and that happened. So is there a possibility of looking into that? Or are we covered with insurance?
Yeah, I talked to the city manager this afternoon about this, and we'll look at it as we're going through it. But this is the improvements that were made over 15 years ago. So that makes it difficult. But if there is any potential, we'll bring it back to you.
Because like I just recall about the roof leaking, and that was a problem. And so again, this is just, yes, it did happen years later, but it was identified earlier because it could have been maybe a leak in the roof and then it went down there. So just to look into it, the possibility of it happening.
Yeah. All right, that's good. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, next item on our agenda, item 13, Mr. Mai.
Nothing further to add tonight?
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Benton?
Nothing further to add tonight.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk? All right, thank you. Council matters. School zones, what do we have? Is that Mr. McPartlin?
Thought I was last, but if you want me to go first, I got my notes here.
Oh, okay, no,
I
we'll
thought
let
we
you
were
go
doing-
last. I'll just call, it's just on the page prior
This
to,
is,
so, yeah, it's okay, that's fine.
I actually contacted the city manager about this as well. The state has authorized with a recent bill to HB 657 related to enforcement of school zone speed limits by cameras and made them legal for using cameras in school zones. And I just wanted to discuss that as a possibility of our school zone enforcement. I mean, there are challenges to it. The challenge is it's not an instant, I will say, ticket or correction. It's something that comes in the mail later. So that is the negative on it, in my opinion. With them at least making it legal, it takes the legality issue off the table. I just wanted to bring it up and discuss it and see if that's something we want to consider, putting cameras in our school zones for the speeders. They seem to be pretty bad, quite a bit. So I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, no, I'm supportive of the school zone. It's just not the cameras. I've heard, read a lot of stories about the cameras, and plus, particularly on 512 here and on Barber Street, I think there's no substitute for having a police car sitting there. But it's one thing to have them sitting there. People need to see that they're taking enforcement actions when people go above the speed limit, and I think that's a greater deterrence because now we put more cameras out there. I mean, who knows where we're going to have cameras at next, right? So. And then just like you said about the fines, if you run through it, and I think they were talking about it don't start until 10 miles over that speed limit, the 20 miles an hour. It doesn't start, you don't get a ticket from those cameras unless you're 10 miles an hour or more over the speed limit in those zones. And then, a month later, you don't know anything about it. A month later, you get something at your house from the clerk, the courthouse telling you your license is going to be suspended or something. So it's one of those challenges. And then where does the money come from? And when they get the money, the company gets 60% and we get 40%? Or what is that?
Mr. Mayor, just, so I spoke with the police chief today. He did meet with the representative from a firm that handles the school zone cameras. He met with them on Monday, and we can come back with a lot more information, but just to answer that specific question, their agreement is that they would provide all of the cameras, all the resources to get it started. They would collect 40% of our 60% cut. So roughly $24 per ticket would go to the organization that handles the cameras.
I guess I would like to ask, and if we do come back and talk about this, maybe if we don't, that I know we have the volunteers that have been sitting on 512 before school got out, and they were sitting there quite a bit. Do you know if they were charting the speeders they were seeing? Because obviously they weren't stopping them because they don't have that authority, but were they charting that out?
So when I met with the chief today, I did ask him specifically if our police vehicles and also volunteer vehicles had been successful while they were there. He said it's kind of hard to measure that because obviously most people, when they see a police car there, they are slowing down. I do not have factual numbers whether they were charting those numbers from the volunteers, but I can look into that and provide you all with details on that.
I think it would be good information to know. I don't disagree with the mayor at all. There's nothing that beats an officer sitting there. Yeah. A month later, people don't even know where they got the ticket at.
Yeah. Mr. Dodd?
I'm not in favor of the camera concept at all, and I think.
I don't know that I am either.
You know, I think.
So I guess
For us to pay a private company, 40% of the ticket price to put cameras out to write tickets, and in all the history you read about camera issued tickets, the majority of those are fought and they lose in court. They don't pay the fines. It's just not a concept that I don't think we should wear ourselves with. And there is one thing greater than that police car sitting there, and that's the blue lights turned on.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you drive down 512, which I do a lot, I probably see at least 2 days a week, I see an officer with somebody pulled over near that school zone. And that's the greatest deterrent you can get, is when you see those blue lights on. So I think they patrol it relatively well. Most people do close down. The school system has shortened the school zones dramatically.
They
5
have.
years ago, in front of, on 512, that school zone was probably over 1/10 of a mile, if not longer. Now it's probably less than 100 yards.
Yeah, it went all the way
So
down
they've
to
actually
that.
shortened the distance that you're in the school zone as it is. And so I'm just not in favor of the cameras.
Yeah, and there's no substitute for, if we're talking about protecting our children, if we have to make sure that we assign a police officer to every single zone when those schools are in or out, there's no better deterrent than having a police officer sitting there and deterring those people from speeding through those zones. So.
And we have very good school crossing
People pick on
people.
those quick.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like we need to move forward with this. Needed to at least have the discussions. Most of those issues that you're referring to, Mr. Dodd, I think the state law would have eliminated them, but people are still going to fight it. So it depends. But yeah, all right, cool.
All right.
I think
So
we're good then.
Actually, I would like to see more information on this item, because if the Sebastian Police Department gives a speeding ticket right now, do you know how much money we see out of that ticket? Probably only about $3 after everybody else gets paid. So if an officer, somebody can test their ticket, we lose money because they have to travel down to the Vero Courthouse, stand there for however long, and then their trip back. So it's 60-40 with the vendor. I would just like to have a little bit more information. Doesn't have to be on an agenda, but just to get that information so we can I would like to review it anyways. And again, I know there are certain things, this goes into effect that counties and municipalities can enact this law July 1st. There is a lot of law that needs to be worked out, but it is successful in some other communities. And it might be just another, tool in the toolbox, because we have had many complaints about the speed, that we are taking it seriously. So I just would like to look into it further.
All right, that's it on that. All right, so I think next up is, we'll start in order, and I'm good for tonight. I'm done. Vice Mayor Nunn?
I'm good for tonight, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Dixon?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Dodd?
I can't not talk. Actually, the only reason I'm going to say anything is because there is so much misconception about this trash thing. And I think I said 4 or 5 meetings ago, or whatever number it was, that I knew there would be one subject that would get me out of politics. I just didn't know it would be trash. And if you want to think about this from a different perspective, please think about it this way. The city of Sebastian is taking on the responsibility to collect trash in this city. And in taking on that responsibility, the city of Sebastian has subcontracted that to Waste Management. Okay? We can subcontract that to anybody else that we have a need to. There's a very tight termination clause in that contract with Waste Management. I mean, the city can terminate that contract in a relatively short period of time if they feel that it's to their advantage to do that. I think, contrary to some of the things we heard this evening, I think the council has every right to make that decision. It's a public safety issue. Quite frankly, I've said this before. I mean, why don't we just go to subscription on street repair? So if the street in front of your house breaks and you want it fixed and you're not a subscription payer, we don't fix it for you. I mean, there's many things like that. Back a long time ago, when I was a young man and in college, I remember taking a class on economics where they talked about social overhead capital. And social overhead capital is the stuff government should do. They're not prohibited from doing that. Whether a republic, a democracy, or a communism government, they're not prohibited from doing that. They should do that. And getting rid of solid waste is a social overhead capital issue. You can't just let trash be built up around somebody's house like the couple came forward earlier this evening in the public records because they don't want to get rid of their trash. You can't, that's a public safety issue. And we have every right to make that decision. Economically, over 65% of the people in this city right now, actually it was 76%, but I believe because of the delinquency rate that Waste Management had, I dropped it down to 65. 65% of the people here are actively paying subscribers. Of those people who are delinquent, there's no indication that they've been delinquent constantly. They're just currently delinquent in that process. So I'm convinced that if we go to referendum, that it's going to be a majority vote to go with the universal system. And I know that in my 6 years up here, the only people who come here and talk to us are people who don't like our decisions. So it would be interesting some way or another to find out what that other 70% of the people feel about this. We've only raised their cost $5 a month. If we had stayed subscription, we would have raised their cost by $30 a month. That's 70% of the people who are already subscription customers. We would have raised that by $30, up to $30 a month from 14. It was just not a good decision. As a body, we're responsible for making the best decisions for the entire city, for all people in the city, not just for the people who come up and complain to us. That's our responsibility. That's why you elect people in this republic to represent you. And this council made the best decision that could have been made given the facts of that decision. And I understand that people aren't happy about it, but it was the best decision that this council could make in that regard. And I believe we had every right to make that decision, and I believe that I believe even to this day that it's still the best decision. And you would not believe the phone calls I get from people, okay? I mean, I voted for you 3 times, I'll never vote for you again. Well, this is a constitutional republic which your leaders are democratically elected. Therefore, if you choose not to vote for me because of this issue, please don't vote for me. It's that simple. But this is, I think there's just a lot of miscommunication. One gentleman said it was a 400% increase. It's not a 400% increase in bills out there. So there's so much miscommunication on this, and I have had conversations with the city manager about ways, and he has some good ideas about ways to try to get more information out on this. Yeah. And I think the city will be trying to get more information out to people to understand it, if they can, in that process. Also, I just want to restate the fact that the gentleman talked about that Schumann sidewalk. I think that's an important safety issue. But if we can do something with that sidewalk within our budget, it is a mess. And also the one on Fleming as it comes down to Main Street is an absolute mess. But it is something important for the school kids. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. McPartland.
I was going to keep it quiet, but what can you do? Next year will be 40 years since my mother sent me to the Army. And I was taught at that time before I got into management that a happy soldier was a bitching soldier. And that's the way I kind of look at social media. It does a lot of good, but then there's a lot of stuff that happens on there. People just want to vent. They don't want to be corrected. They just want to yell. They want somebody to do it. So that's why I look at it. And the phone calls, actually, I haven't got many phone calls from the city. I get worse phone calls from the Department of Children and Families. And again, it's Brian really only his 3rd day on the job, and I think he has done an exceptional job. And me and Brian have talked about a number of things, because again, I participate in a lot of other different things throughout the Treasure Coast and Okeechobee. And again, seniors are struggling. I have talked to them. And there's a program, and it's through ARP. and it can give anyone 55 plus the ability to work 18 hours a week, be paid $10 an hour through ARP, which is probably through some federal funding, and maybe to some people $180 or $720 a month is nothing, but to people who are living on a limited income, that is like hitting the lottery. And I'm doing the legwork, and I'm going to give it to Brian. So the position cannot take the part of an actual job. But like where Ron sits there in the foyer, a person 55 and over can sit next to Ron, assist him in answering the phone or mailing letters, as well as we could put someone at the senior center and a lot of the other areas that we have, and give people that are struggling the ability to have income. You know, there's also, of course, this is probably a dangerous topic and nobody will want to talk about it, but I'll do it, is we are struggling to fill our lowest positions, the stormwater crews, and I'd really like us to look at the opportunity of becoming a second chance employer. If you think in Charlie Manson, you're the wrong person, but there are people who have made the wrong decision in their life and they can't get a job for the rest of their life. And granted, what the city would offer, again, I'm not saying somebody who works with kids or whatever, part of a crew, not the entire crew being the Lucchese crime family or the Bonanos, but working on part of a crew, as well as our public works compound, has cameras all over the place. You can't do anything wrong because the cameras are there. And look at these individuals. We are taking a chance on every employer throughout the country is taking a chance on hiring somebody because they'll leave for a quarter. But if you give some of these people, of course, they would be vetted. There's the reentry program through Diamond Liddy, the public defender's office. Career Source will federally bond that individual. You give these people the opportunity, you can get loyalty. And what does the city offer? Maybe it would be little pay, but what would they get? A fantastic benefits package, especially if they're a family. It would give them the ability of annual leave, sick leave, as well as retirement. Some of these individuals fill out applications, they don't even get a phone call back. They become desperate, and what happens? They commit a new crime. So I would really like us to look into the possibility of that. Again, I'll do the legwork, and then I'll bring it to Brian. Another thing is, I want to thank the clerk's office, because they made me a beautiful booklet and talking about all the city properties. And all I wanted to know was the lots that were here. Because I've had multiple conversations with Trevor and with Jeff from Habitat for Humanity. Why the hell ain't you guys building any house? Well, Bob, we ain't got no land. I want us to, I'm going to have a sit down with them. What's the possibility of this 90 plus lots? I would open it up, and I don't know if it's possible, but open it up first to city employees. Would you like to do home ownership? Go through the Habitat for Humanity, the sweat equity, the financial stability, because right now it's just an empty lot. What are we getting, $100 a year in ad valorem taxes? When a home, and a Habitat home, is concrete block construction built to the hurricane code. When you have a house there, you get ad valorem taxes. And I think first would be Sebastian employees opening up to, then Sebastian residents, and then possibly Indian River County residents. I think this is something we can do within, and again, affordable. These are people that would be meeting the minimum to get into home ownership. And if you want to put some sort of bond, I understand we're like giving away free land and stuff. If they do the home, work through the Habitat. If they sell that home, they pay us back the price of the lot. And I think also we might look at some of these lots. You have neighbors, all of a sudden, they were told, hey, that property will never be developed. And all of a sudden it gets cleared. Maybe some of those residents who have empty lots next to them, it might be the city that owns them. Maybe you want to talk to the city, because once it gets cleared is when we hear complaints. So those are just possibilities. Again, Brian, you do wonderful. Jeanette and Mr. Mai, I think we only have one more meeting with you. I really appreciate everything you've done. And I got to stop talking.
All right. Thank you.
Councilmember McPartland, that was Kathy that put that book together for you.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Fantastic job.
Oh, see that? Jeanette don't take credit for anything she didn't do. That's awesome. All right, so there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.